Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Connected Live. Yes, I'm still in the comfort of my own home and I'm not out at the barn. I'm going to do the barn a little bit later today, so hopefully I'll get a ride in. I worked this morning with some clients. I did a few posts, as some of you saw, and I had a quiet moment in the house right now. The dogs are all asleep. The puppy finally... So interesting. The puppy is not an early morning guy in the sense of he doesn't like to eat first thing in the morning, which is unusual because I love to eat first thing in the morning. I wake up ravenous, and the first thing I go to is drinking 2 glasses of water usually, and clean out the system, give the cells all that it needs, and then I go for a nice big breakfast, or what I call a big breakfast. My big breakfasts now at 51 are not that big anymore. You tend to need less food as you get older. So anyway, this Connected Live, I wanted to address past lives because a lot of people know about all the different skills that I can do, and they want to hear about who they were in a past life. Okay, so you notice how most people when they talk about past lives, they're like some famous individual and no one's Joe Schmo, nobody. I always think that's so funny. Like, everyone's like, oh, I was Marie Antoinette or something. So I just saw I have one person watching. Hi, I'm actually going to do a past life talk today for Connected Live concerning humans and animals. And my comment was just... Everybody, when they want to do past lives, they'll go to a psychic and they'll say they were somebody famous, right? And no one ever says, I was Joe Schmo, nobody, which is kind of funny. Why is it that everybody's like a famous person and there are billions of people on the planet? We all can't be the same famous person. So it doesn't matter whether you were famous or not. That's not the relevant issue. It matters how your previous life can affect your current life. It's rare. It's not all the time that it happens. It's not a huge issue. It's not like you can't get through life in a great way and learn all kinds of lessons without knowing past lives, but it can be helpful in a lot of instances. So I'm going to talk about 2 of my own, and then I'll move on to, yes, animals do have different lifetimes as well. And I actually have a couple of examples of that in my own personal animals, but I have experienced it with other clients. So in my own personal life, I've had 2. So the most recent one was things going on about everything to do with the United States. And I'm an extreme patriot, so I couldn't figure it out. Like, why am I such a patriot? Why have I always had such a deep love of this country? And it's just, what is it about this country? So I actually did have a dream. When I asked the question and I went to bed at night, I had a dream and I got the answer. I was a man and I was just a common soldier during the Revolutionary War. And the scene I got shown was towards the end of the Revolutionary War. And it was very cold and it was dark and we were by a fire and we had the encampment all around us. And there was like a group of 5 or 6 of us that were all, I guess, we got to know each other through the Revolutionary War, but we were tight. We were in the same unit and we were very tight. And I was a man. And I was not visiting the dream. I was in my previous life's body. So I would look down and see my boots and my uniform, and I could feel the cold and I would see my breath, and the fire was really warm. I could feel it all, but I also knew I was viewing it. So I was allowed to be inside that body, but I wasn't in control of it, and it was mine. And I could hear everybody around me talking about the revolution and what it meant to each of us and how passionate we were about the cause. And so when I woke up from that dream, I went, man, that explains everything. I will tell you, the end of the dream, I didn't experience my death, but then I was over the scene and I got to see what I looked like, and I was dead. I had been killed, and my unit was around me apparently I had done something to help. I took one for the team, if you will. I put myself in danger to try to help somebody, pull somebody out of the line of fire, and I got shot, and I was killed trying to help one of the guys from the team. But again, we were all no names. We weren't anything famous. We were just patriots. So I did see my death. I was shot, and I was shot and killed very quickly. It was literally right through the chest, and I didn't feel a thing. But I got to remote view it kind of on top of my body, watching my friends around me from my unit sad at my passing, but also just saying some really kind words about me, which don't matter. But anyway, my second remote viewing of a previous life, but it wasn't, I was with a psychic, the only really psychic reading I've ever had. And it happened when I was very young, and I had never told anybody 2 facts. And I was, I think, 20 at the time. And the psychic kind of gave me a reading from start to finish of my life, which, by the way, I've tried to negate the entire time, and it all came to pass. And I fought it tooth and nail, because when she told me at 21, when I was an executive, that I was going to be this spiritual healer, I thought, you're nuts, lady. I'm never going to do that. That's like putting a friggin' target on your chest, you know, of A, being a lightweight, B, getting nowhere in life. And I mean, crazy stuff. I was just so not willing to go with the program. But she said, there's something important that you need to know. And I said, what's that? She said, you're going to make it past the age of 25 this time. And I kind of jaw dropped to the floor, because there was never a doubt in my mind, even as sentient as I was at 10 years old, that I was not going to live past 25. I thought that my life was going to be very short, and I was going to die a pretty violent death. And so I was always scared. I was scared. So if you put me out in the middle of the woods in a hurricane in the middle of the night, I was not scared, because it was open space. If you put me in a house and the lights went out, or in a confined area in the dark, lost my biscuits as a child. Couldn't take it. I felt very vulnerable. I never understood why. Kind of labeled a coward. My dad, would always be really hard on me about being afraid of the dark and being afraid of tight places. But yet, we would go into the woods to go riding horses on a full moon. Totally okay. As long as I had a place, I guess I could explain it later. As long as I had a place to run, I felt comfortable. But what happened was, if you put me in a confined area, it changed the game for me. And the fear was paralyzing. Like, I couldn't move, and I was completely irrational. And I felt like something was going to get me from behind. So when I was with this psychic, she explained, you've been here 12 times. This is your 13th lifetime. She said, you're older than dirt. You go back before the time of Christ, which I got kind of validated when I met one of the best friends to the Dalai Lama, who grew up with him, a Geshe-la that I've spoken about in my previous. He said, I was a former student, and he gave me the time period, and it was actually before Christ. So weird how I got that validation in my late 30s, and this psychic in my early 20s kind of nailed it. She said, you've been here since before the time of Christ. You keep coming back. She said, this past time you asked not to come back, and you were kind of retired in this other realm doing good work, but you were just kind of out of the chaos, out of the game, out of the fight between good and evil. And she said, believe it or not, somehow they convinced you to come back to be of service on this planet, because there's going to be a time of great change and you're going to be needed. And they convinced you into coming back. And I thought inside myself, that was stupid. I was like, who the hell convinced me to come back? I kind of shook my fist. And even now, like, I see it, we're in a time of, the great awakening, the great change, the change to 5D. And, there is going to be a timeline schism. A lot of people are going to stay in 3D. 4D is kind of the realm of nebulousness, and it feels wonky and awful, but keep your energy high and keep it into love and confidence with healthy rules, boundaries, and limitations, and you will make that shift into 5D. Very important. You don't want to be left in 3D or 4D. So anyway, with that said, I was focused on lifetimes. So she actually explained that in every single lifetime prior to this one, I had been murdered before the age of 25, and that I had always been on this planet with mission and purpose. And she said, you have always been on the side of light. You have always fought for the side of light. And you were always targeted and murdered for it. And I kind of went, yeah, see, you know, these spiritual healer types, you get a target on your chest. Really don't want that. You know, she kept telling me I was going to be a healer, and I was like, no freaking way. I was like, I'm not doing it. And it's interesting, though. I did make it past 25. I'm 51 years old this March coming up. And she said, in this life, you will not be harmed in that way. You will not be murdered. You will not be tortured. This lifetime is about you leading and continue to lead all the way until you pass on. And she said, but you are going to be here during a great time of strife, and people are going to call you crazy, and they are going to invalidate you. And it's funny, I went back into my notes about myself, because sometimes I keep a notebook of certain things, and I did keep a notebook of things that she said to me. And every once in a while, I go back to take a look, and she called this great time of strife that I was supposed to be a healer, and I was supposed to help lead and set a good example. And so, all that fear of being in the dark and being in confined spaces went radically down when I accepted that that was truth. And then, yes, through the years, I have had different dreams of what those previous lives were like. She also told me, it was really funny. I did say at the beginning, I was nobody important. I never have been anybody important in my previous lives, except for just somebody trying to hold the light like I am today. I'm nobody famous. I'm not going to go down in the history books, but I am a carrier of light. She did say, even though I had been alive prior to Christ being on the planet, she said, you were also alive during the time of Christ, and you did meet him. You did meet him, and he deeply affected you. And again, it became one of those time periods where you decided to be a healer and help people and carry the light. And so she said in that meeting, and I did not meet him personally, I was at a gathering apparently where he spoke, and I heard him spoke, and he affected me. And then I went on to go do my work. Again, I'm nobody famous. I was nobody of any importance. Just somebody carrying the light. So with that said, I realized that I had a fear of someone coming up behind me, and it kind of explained that I carried a little bit of that energy into this lifetime because I got stalked from the age of 11 to 22. And I had a choice. You either be a victim and be afraid, or I take that healer energy, which had just a little too much poet to it, and I add that kind of peaceful warrior to go with it, to protect and defend, and learn how to take care of myself. Now, a lot of people will say that coming in the 5D, those skills will no longer be needed. But the fact is, those skills of knowing how to protect myself and having those healthy rules, boundaries, and limitations stopped any of that kind of predation to happen to me ever again. And I'm so grateful for that. So, learning how to defend yourself and coming from a peaceful place, like you just know how to defend yourself. There's no fear, and you do the best you can to defend yourself and stand up for yourself with healthy rules, boundaries, and limitations. And there's always a risk. When I talk to police about it, when I was young, they would say, well, if you don't fight, you're going to have to endure probably torture, maybe death. And then can you live with that if you didn't fight? And some people can live with that. As long as they live, they don't care. But some people need to be able to fight. And the fact is, if you don't really explore who you are and what makes you tick, you won't respond the way you would like to respond in a bad situation. So I had to go sit with myself as a child around 13 years old and say, you know, and I can't just allow someone to torture me, violate me, hurt me without putting up an effective fight. And I'd rather get hurt worse fighting and going down, but sticking up for me, than just laying there. And I don't put down anybody who just takes it, but I'm not the personality that can take it. So I knew that early on about myself, and the police officers were so amazing who coached me, made me really learn about myself early on. So there was this issue as a child, and then in my 20s I learned why that issue occurred and release it. And then at 30, in between there, I started to have dreams about what happened and why, and making peace with it kind of through the journey of my life. But it came about very organically. I did not hunt down every psychic on the planet in order to find out my past lives. I will share a client one, and because it's really kind of impactful and important. So I've had a client that has had a lot of emotional dis-ease in their life. And in all the years I've known them, they've never told me their whole story. I just knew that there was a radical imbalance within the mind, but I didn't know their history. So they finally got on board and did a session with me, and they wanted to know about their past lives. And so I didn't know if I was going to get anything or not, and I was kind of annoyed by it because the person was like, well, I've done psychotherapy, I've done this therapy, I've done that therapy, I've taken these pills. I don't need you to coach me. I know everything you know. And I was like, but funny enough, I went in, I did the session, and lo and behold, they showed me her previous life. And what they showed me about this person was he had had a psychotic break in the previous life, like absolutely went mental, like psychotic break, the mind broke, and this person was absolutely like certifiable. They had to be put away. And so when I brought that up to this client, he said to me, I had a break in this lifetime too. And I got out of it, and I've done all this therapy, and this is where I am today. And I said, wow, okay. And there was a lot more to it, but there was a link between the previous life of having that emotional dis-ease at that severe level and then carrying it into this life. And so with the work that we've done, I helped process that so that they can come full circle with the issue and move into the next life, meaning, wherever they go after they pass on, the body that is, that they can continue to evolve and move up, and that their frequency goes up and that their lessons become, higher vibration. So that's those stories about how it can affect humans. I used 2 from my own personal life, and then I used one that was a client's. So now I'm going to talk about the animals. Okay, so with animals, I'm going to use Bo. His name is Arbo. Some may know because I may have shared with you privately. This is Arrow. Come back as a dog. I think I've mentioned it in a few of the videos, but I'll explain it a little bit more here. So when Arrow was dying, I had no expectation of him coming back. I did not ask him to come back. I did not think in my wildest dreams that he would come back voluntarily or any other kind, because he had endured such suffering in as a horse that I just, in my brain, no matter how much I loved him and I knew that my life would be forever altered without his presence, I knew I could not ask him to come back. I couldn't even think it for a second. I just had to figure out how to mourn, and in the process of his death, allow it to be his moment. He was the one dying, not me. And as much as I was going to miss him, it was my responsibility as his partner in this world to help him pass peacefully. And he had to know that I was going to be okay. He had to know that I wasn't falling apart. I needed to give him peace of mind while he was still in that physical body. And I will say, actually, I do have another animal past life story that is related to Arrow. So I'm going to back up. So when Arrow was alive, I kept running into the story of the horse that survived Little Bighorn. There was one survivor of the Little Bighorn. And I kept running into the story, and the story kept coming into my face from multiple sources for no reason. And it happened, I guess, about 6 times, and I finally read the story. And then I went to the barn the next day, and we were riding, and I said, Arrow, I have a question to ask you. We were riding bareback, we were in the hills of California, and it was a beautiful day, and I just remember riding him and feeling so peaceful, and I said, were you the horse that survived Little Bighorn? Which happened to be a Mustang as well. And he literally stopped walking. He turned his big head and looked at me. And I heard him wisely say, you finally got the message. And I went, so you are him. You're the reincarnation of this great horse that survived the Little Bighorn. He goes, no, I was not him. He said, I met him in battle. I met him the day of Little Bighorn. I met him, oh God, I'm gonna cry because it was very emotional for Arrow too. He said, I met him that day on the field of battle, and I lost my life. I was fighting on the side of the Native Americans. I was an Indian pony, and he showed me what he looked like. And then he showed me him laying dead amongst all the dead that were at Little Bighorn. And I just was like, and I saw all these Native Americans around us, you know, as we were riding suddenly. And I went, okay. And I said, why did you need me to know that? And he said, because my connection to Native Americans is more than just this lifetime. And he said, and Native Americans have always singled you out, even though you're white, and have seen you for what you are, which is, and he said, and I've been called this before, you are a white buffalo. And I went, okay, I don't know how to handle that because I just think I'm just a person. He said, you are, but you're a holder of light. So that was Arrow sharing with me a past life of his. And he got me to see it through that story coming to me so that I would ask him. So why did Arrow come back? I'll tell you, it was very serendipitous how this puppy came, but I've been following the person who bred him for a while. And they had a litter of puppies that happened to be all black. And we went to meet the parents before the puppies were born. And I come home, and I was in the bathroom. And I was just, my brain was wandering, you know, the incredible responsibility of a young dog, a puppy, my age, our financial situation with COVID, and how everything has been really tough. And I just thought, you know, am I crazy? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. This is, you know, crazy. And suddenly in my mind's eye, and it was powerful. It was like my vision got blurred, and all I saw was Arrow's big head as a horse. And he said, hello, old friend. It won't be much longer. I love you, and I'll see you after Christmas. Happy New Year. I love you. And I just dropped everything I was holding. And I got a hold of myself, and I felt him still around. I said, why? Why on earth would you come back? And he said, because you still need me. And you don't need me as a horse. You need me as a dog. And I went, oh my God, you always complained. That's why you banned Baldur from the barn, because you said it wasn't fair that he got me all day and that you only got 3 hours. And every day that I left the barn, I felt Arrow's anxiety. He would astral project to be with me, to keep me protected. I mean, that was really interesting. He was a protector. And he did. He kept me protected in all kinds of crazy situations, whether it was physical or even astral projecting. He would show up and warn me about stuff. It was just, I've never had a teacher at that level. So it was really funny. That complaint happened very early on, that dog got to go everywhere and he couldn't because of the human world and the limitations of him as a horse. And then on top of the limitations of him being a horse, he was 28, 29, you know, suddenly 30 years old. He was old and his body just couldn't do. And I heard him one day in the barn as I was cleaning up very much say prior to his illness, I can't take care of you like this. I can't lead you. I can't protect you. My body is failing me. And I looked up and I said, we're all getting older. I feel like shit too. I'm 50. I feel like hell in a handbag. I said, it's natural. And he goes, no, I can't do this anymore in this body. And I was like, don't you dare bag out on me. I mean, he tried to warn me and I really wasn't interested in listening because it was the last thing I wanted to hear because he was my best friend. And no matter how weird I am, my ups and downs, my bad humor, my weird, goofy side, my incessant auditory processing, he just liked me as a person and he loved me as a soul. And despite all his idiosyncrasies with all his damage, I felt the same way about him. There was nothing I didn't like about him. I think other people might have hated him as their horse, but he was perfect for me. We were a soul match. We were a match. And whenever I always said, I love you, whenever I left him, I said, I love you. And he would always say, I love you back. And he would always say, always. I'm going to make myself cry. So he told me he was coming back as a puppy. And I can tell you right now, it is him. And you know, for what's going on with the Great Awakening and all the darkness that there is in the world and the light that is really struggling right now, let's put it this way. To be honest, there's more darkness out there than there is of the light. The dark really does have us outnumbered. The thing is that the light will always overpower darkness. Once you start spreading light, one person of light is worth tens of thousands of the dark, because the light can supersede massive amounts of dark. So even though we're vastly outnumbered, and it's hard for this ourselves in our human bodies, we have to hold the line and pray for the light to win, because not all is as it seems. And there's a few people that I've tried to tell that to in specifics, and they just can't wrap their heads around it. They're stuck in their belief system of who they think is on the side of light and who they think is on the side of dark, and they actually have it ass backwards. And it's just, I have to say, I never had it ass backwards, but I certainly was shocked at who was on the side of light, because I couldn't, it was hard for me to take it in. But it rang true. So I'll just leave it at that, because I don't want to get on into an argument on this Connected Live with anybody. If you disagree with anything I'm saying, you don't believe in reincarnation, whatever, just scroll on by. I don't start fights on other people's pages. Don't start them on mine. Have some respect. So anyway, just my little caveat there. So Arrow came back as Arbo. Arrow loved his name. And he wanted it to be Arrow again. And I said, you know, we can't do that. That was a previous lifetime. You're coming in as a whole new being, and you have a whole new set of lessons, and you need a name that's current, not your old name. And he did agree. And so I mixed bow and arrow together and got Arbo. And what Arrow said to me in spirit form before he was born is, I am not only the arrow, I am also the bow. And I went, yeah, actually, I like it. That's fitting. You're the entire thing. You're the bow and the arrow. And so I call him Bo for short. He's in there. And it's so funny. His personality is that of the stubbornness that was Arrow, the independent thinker. There are the core things that show up. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things that Arrow said very poignantly prior to his birth, that night he said he was coming home, or coming back to me. He said, I will never leave your side again. I will always be with you. Man, I didn't know how literal that was. Even now, like right below me, this guy, I'm going to move the camera, sorry folks, so you can see him. There he is. And that is how he has been doing since he came home at 8 weeks. He's 10 weeks now. Even Baldur will go rest someplace else. This one will not leave me. Just like Arrow said. Arrow always wanted to be with me. He never wanted to leave me. Now, there's a tiny little problem with that. When I have to put him in his crate, because I have to take the big dogs for a walk, because he can't come with me yet, because he doesn't have his shots, his second round of shots. We'll find out what Dr. McNeil wants to do when she sees him. But until I know what Dr. McNeil feels about him, I don't feel he has enough protection. And so just to be responsible, sorry, playing with the camera, just to be responsible, I'm not taking him for walks, because if he picks up parvo, I think I will have to kill myself. So he's staying in the backyard. He goes for rides with me in the car. We go to the barn where we know it's clean. Inside the barn is clean. So I take him places, but I don't let him get down anywhere because it's just too scary. So by February 2nd, I'll know if we can start letting him have a bigger view. But what's interesting is he's already the perfect traveler. Absolutely screams when I leave him alone. And that's what I mean. Like, I have to take the older guys for a walk, and I leave him in his crate with his bed and everything. And I have never heard a puppy scream the way he screams. Yeah, actually, that's a lie. I've heard wolf pups scream the way he screams. It's not even it is it sounds like the Tasmanian devil run amok. I mean, I've never, except for wolf pups, I've never heard a puppy with a voice that deep in my life. But man, does he object. So just say I walk to the front yard and Baldur's laying down, because he's an old man, he's hanging out. And Thor likes to stay in the backyard. He wants nothing to do with the outside world. He will come with me, but he doesn't really want to be petted by anybody else. He's a rescue. He's been betrayed by humanity. On such a deep level, it's taken with Thor that he loves his family nucleus, and that's it, and wants nothing to do with anybody else. He kind of reflects my husband. My husband is the same way. My husband could care less if he sees another person as long as he lives. He's happy with the dogs. He's happy with me. And even me, he wants to like lock in a closet sometimes because we're so opposite. But he reflects my husband's nature, that introverted. Bo will be up in that front yard with me if I have to do an errand, like white on rice, and will not leave my side. It's so interesting to me, and he kept his promise. He's never going to leave me. So as an adult dog, he's going to be at the barn. He's come back a tank, like he was a tank in horse form. He's a tank in dog form. So he'll go on trail rides with me, and he'll learn to heel at, somebody's side. Very interesting. Jack, who loved Arrow, and Arrow taught Jack so much. Arrow would play fight with Jack all the time and teach Jack how to fight. And I could see it. And you could see that, man, even though William is the same age as Jack, William was like, I already know how to fight. Like, I have videos of when Arrow and William first met, and William tried to take on Arrow. Arrow could have killed him. And Arrow put him back firmly in his place. But William refused to learn from Arrow. Refused. Jack, on the other hand, was just like, teach me. He loved Arrow deeply. I will say, in William's defense, when Arrow got sick and was vulnerable, it was William that protected Arrow. So there was a kinship there. There was just a competition for me. And Arrow would always say to William, you'll get her, excuse my language, but this is how he said it. When I am good and ready, I didn't curse, but he said curses. When I am good and ready to give her up. And she's still mine. So you take a back seat, bucko. And so that's really the way it was. So William was just very eager to be the number one horse, and he has taken that role. But Jack has also taken the role in a very different way. So why am I bringing this up? The other day, I got Arrow, the boys were in the barn feeding, and I put Arbo up to Jack, and Jack's eyes went like a cartoon character. They got huge. His eyes bulged. And then he looked at me and I said, yes, Jack, it's Arrow. And I tell you, I wish I'd had a camera on me. This is why I wish I had film crews. But I didn't, because I can't hold a puppy and I can't watch a horse and hold a camera. But Jack's face was like, he smiled. He gave a full smile, put his nose down to him, and the two of them just nose to nose. And it was soul recognition. And I said, but you do know, Jack, he is now a dog and he's having a different lifetime. So you're going to have to teach him about horses, because guess who hates dogs? Jack. They had a pit bull come into the field where he was bred that was itchy and aggressive. And Jack was less than a year old. And the pit bull was large, probably a good 90 pounds. And I saw Jack charge it. I saw Jack pick it up by the back of the neck before it could even grab a leg, shake it and throw it in the air. This dog was still snarling, so it was aggressive and angry, and I feel bad for the poor creature because it was probably due to its circumstances. But it landed and started screaming, and then Jack just lowered his head again like, you want some more, and really was going to kill the dog if the dog did not leave. So Jack is really a Mustang in that he sees dogs as a threat. And what was really interesting about raising Arbo and him acknowledging that it was Arrow, I said, you're going to have to teach him how to be around you, because he is a dog in this lifetime, but he is part of our family. And whenever you see him with me, and he is black, and you will know him by his color, he's the only big black dog with wolf-looking ears. He is part of our family, and you will have to protect him, and he will protect you, and we will all protect each other. So he was good. Then I go over to William's stall. Yep. He knew it was Arrow because he looked at him, and he typically likes dogs. And pinned his ear, shook his head, and was like, damn it, he's back. So that's not because he's a dog. It was because of William's jealousy. So I told William, you better put that in check, because you ever touch him, you ever hurt him, you're going to have to answer to me. We are a family unit, and we are an interspecies family. So as Arbo gets his education, re-entry education into the barn, I will update all of you on that. But he's still too young. He's only 10 months old. He goes to Dr. McNeil at Mustang Animal Health Clinic on February 2nd. And we get him looked at and checked over and make sure that he's good to go with being in the outside world and that he has enough protections. So 2 more weeks of isolation. But he's already just a great traveler, and I know that he'll always be with me. He is going to be trained service dog. And I already have all that in the works, so he's going to have everything he needs to absolutely go everywhere and be allowed in everywhere. So I'm really thrilled about that. That was something that Balder always complained about. Balder had the training of a therapy dog, but because we never had the certification, he couldn't do it, which is just, ridiculous. He's cleaner than most humans are. And he was better mannered than most children. So it was always a big rub for me. So now that he's going to be a formal service dog, Bo will be. He'll be able to come everywhere. So that is my Connected Live for today. This was a Connected Live once I post it about past lives and how they can affect your current lives. And yes, I do help people with past lives. I do help animals with past lives. I've had a couple of clients with those issues that when we addressed the past life, a lot of the behavior issues transformed, and then we finished the rest of the way. But it's a small part. Past lives don't ruin or make the current life. It's the past. But it depends on how what your soul decided to do with that information. If you're still stuck, if you still need help processing. So yes, in my work, and I only do distance work, so you can work with me on Zoom, FaceTime, phone. I don't need to see you. I've been doing it for 20 years. You can make an appointment with me on my website. So connectedenergyhealing.com. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and thanks for everybody for listening in, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. All right, bye-bye.